Elsewhere in Africa, well, South Africa, to be precise, says it is committed to improving its relationship with the United States after Washington expelled its ambassador. Tensions between the two countries boiled over on Friday when U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio posted on X that Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool was persona non grata. Rasool's expulsion is the latest development in tensions between Washington and Pretoria over several policy disagreements, including South Africa's case against Israel at the International Court of Justice over the war in Gaza.
Right, international affairs analyst Dr. Nwokolo joins us now for more on this. Good to have you on Newsnight. Good to see you again. Well, some would say that what Trump is doing with white South Africans is a cautionary tale, because when you consider the fact that only the whites actually make up 7% of South Africa's population and own about half of the land. And, you know, these accusations about, or allegations of racism towards the whites. I mean, how do you see all of this? So what do you think really is at the root of it?
I mean, this might be the immediate cause,
right?
But if you go back to what Adeswa said here, it started from South African position based on the Israeli-Palestinian war,
yes,
as well as their position on the Ukraine-Russian war. Now, if you flip it the other side, you could be asking, so what is the U.S. position between Ukraine and Russia now?
Right.
So, but all these things, to what I tell a lot of people, is about how strong is your state. Build your economy, be a strong state. The other states will respect you. 20, 30 years ago, America will not be dealing with South Africa the way they are dealing with South Africa now. South Africa is now a country that depends on aid from America. So it means that as your state becomes very weak, the way you negotiate in international politics is watered down.
Right.
20, 40 years ago, Nigeria as a country, if we cough, the other countries in Africa would catch cold. But it's no longer the same. So South Africa is suffering, you know, things that came out of the dwindling economy. Right. And that's what you see. And one could say, is there any lesson South Africa can pick from Zimbabwe? What happened to the Zimbabweans when they seized the white farms, right? But looking at the entire thing, it still remains that build a strong economy, build a strong army, and then you can be able to determine what you say politically. 40, 50 years ago, China can't be saying what China is saying today. You know? So, and this is a big lesson for all African countries.
So when Ramaphosa says, look, our relationship, that South Africa's relationship with the United States is priority, is it a further sign of, you know, coming from a position of weakness, right?
That's what it is. You're coming from a position of weakness.
Yeah, well, the U.S. is South Africa's second largest trading partner. South Africa at the moment holds the presidency of the G20. However, the U.S. has snubbed several G20 meetings, including the recent finance one that held in South Africa. Is this a clear message from Washington punishing South Africa for its global stance, or its foreign policy, if you like? Because, I mean, Ambassador Raoul did say that Trump is promoting white supremacists, global white supremacists. Some wonder, was that within the remit of an ambassador to make such comments? But then when you look at the relationship between these two, is U.S. punishing South Africa?
So before, we used to think that if we have a strong institution, it doesn't matter about who is your president. I mean, Trump has really changed this entire thing. The way the American position on a lot of things, you could see it is coming from a person, not from the United States as a state, right? Some of the position a lot of countries took before Trump won the election, you could see that most people didn't think he was going to win. Then when he won, he said, okay, I'm going to pay you back on your coin. And that's exactly what he's doing. So South Africa is reaping what he didn't really sow directly. So that's what you're seeing. So when you look at it, when it comes to the issue of how South Africa is being treated by the U.S., especially what the ambassador cited, you can equally remember that this is an ambassador who's almost like, he's a freedom fighter,
yes,
right? And he has been somebody who, exactly, he knows the U.S. He almost knows who is who in Washington.
Yeah.
And over a year, he couldn't do much because of what Trump has really done. But like I said, look at the relationship between Canada and the U.S.
Right.
If your economy is strong, you know, you're able to withstand whatever threat that is coming to you. But where it's not, you always be coming from a weak position where you're nearly like going begging, trying to like help in hand. Yes.
But looking at the overall, you know, Trump actions in the last, I mean, since he was sworn in, and how some other countries seem to be, you know, kowtowing to him, is there some kind of global reset going on? And what do you think would be the implications in the case of South Africa, for example, if Trump succeeds in what, you know, whatever the end game is? What do you think is likely to happen to Southern African countries and the rest of Africa?
We used to say this, that democracies don't go to war. So probably democracies don't really go to physical war. But what we're seeing now is that democracies are going to economic war. And that's what he's bringing. The tariff war between South Africa and Canada and Mexico, which is moving to Europe and so on, is actually changing the entire global system and the way we look at a lot of things. Now, remember that even the countries in NATO are reducing money from international aid, moving into their defense and security.
Yes, to beef up their...
Exactly,
yes.
because they are not even sure that if anything happens between them and Russia, that the US will come to their aid.
Yeah.
So it's changing the entire thing. And what is Africa learning? What we're learning is that our critical mineral is the only thing we're holding on to. Right? And that's where I think South Africa has missed it.
In what way?
Missed it in such a way that the US is thinking probably the only thing I know about South Africa might be gold.
What about the diamonds?
So it might not really be what they want. What they want now is critical mineral. If he's going to get it from Ukraine with what he's pushing, so why is he going to, he will punish South Africa for anything.
Yeah.
Right? So for them, it's about, for him again, it's about my man, Elon Musk and his electronic cars. If I can get the...
Ask you, is there an Elon Musk factor here?
You bring in Elon Musk because we know Elon Musk was born in South Africa.
In South Africa.
And then his company, Starlink, has not been able to function there because beyond the ICJ case against Israel,
30%.
There's also the ties with Iran and, of course, the land reform, which has affected Elon Musk. So all of that put into context.
Exactly, because in South Africa, if you're a foreign company, 30% of the ownership of that company need to go to black South Africans. It's in their constitution. This is the way they're trying to use to balance the inequality between...
To close the gap.
Exactly, the gap.
So are you saying the ambassador is right with his comments, even though they say it's beyond his remit as, you know, an ambassador, to say Trump is promoting global white supremacists?
If you have the power, you can say anything.
Okay, so get the power, and everything else will follow.
And the power could be economical.
What does Nigeria learn here? I mean, we're too rich when it comes to mineral resources. Whether it's in the north, the south, the middle, every part of Nigeria has one resource or the other. What kind of bargaining chip? I mean, what kind of power play should Nigeria be playing, if at all we can?
Get your governance right.
Get your governance right.
And just before we go, in 20 seconds, can this relationship be repaired? I mean, South Africa says we're not going to retaliate. We're not going to recall your own ambassador. But are we seeing a permanent shift in the relationship between both countries, or do you think it can be repaired? When
the power parity, both asymmetrical and symmetrical, is this way and that way, there's nothing much you can do. If you build your economy and you're strong, you can challenge anybody.
Great.
Build your economy, be strong. Cautionary tale. Thank you very much, Dr. Ndubisi Nwokolo, International Affairs Analyst and Managing Partner at Next Year. Thank you for joining us.